Yeah, I could understand that. And what was detoxing like for you at home? Because I did it without medical attention myself.
Same. I was going through waves of emotions that I wasn't used to. Like I was either really anxious. It was kind of like manic. Like I went into like a manic episode where I would be like delirious and like laughing hysterically, and then I just start crying. And crying, like just feeling all the shame and the guilt and just like replaying everything that I've ever done in my life, like to my parents, that no matter what I did to my parents, they always stood by me, to my family, that they were always there. They could have very easily like kicked me out on the street, but they never gave up on me.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Sober Strong Apparel. Sober Strong Apparel isn't just lifestyle wear, it's battle gear. Heavyweight tees, hoodies, and gear for the ones who draw a hard line. Clean, sober, no compromise. We rep sobriety like a badge of honor. And every piece you throw on says you're a part of the crew that doesn't back down. And every order fuels recovery with 10% donated to treatment facilities, because we don't just talk about it, we stand on it. So go to SoberStrongApparel.com, use the code ROCKBOTTOM, all capital, all one word, and get 10% off your purchase. I love what this company stands for. The clothing looks amazing. And happy holidays to all of you. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the show. And definitely check out SoberStrongApparel.com.
Welcome back to Recovery Room with Rachel. I'm Rachel, and we have our guest, Natalie. She also
Oh,
goes by the Sober Glow Getter, right?
yes. Yeah. And personality.
Yeah, with 3 E's. That's pretty cool. Pretty unique.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's start off with sobriety date, drug of choice, where you're from originally.
Okay. So yeah, my name is Natalie. My sobriety date is November 25th, 2022. I'm originally from Sunset Park, Brooklyn, New York. And Sunset Park, what time is it? Yeah, I mean, I want to say that my drug of choice was always alcohol, but mixed in with other things. Teenage years, mainly ecstasy. It was a lot of E, and then I graduated from that to Chi Get the Yayo, some Tony Montana. So some cocaine, yeah, and alcohol and cocaine just went hand in hand with me. Once I felt like I was going low, because let's face it, alcohol is a depressant. So anytime I felt like I was falling asleep a little bit or not being my bubbly party self, that's when I would kick it up a notch.
Yeah, let's go to the bathroom. Yeah,
Yeah, right? I got the keys.
I got the keys. I got the long nail.
That's
I got the long nail.
right.
So let's take it back. Let's take it back a little bit farther about your childhood. So
Okay.
you say you're from Brooklyn, and let's
Yep.
just start up there. Your family life.
Family life. No, not at all. My family life is great. I didn't have a messed up childhood. I had a great childhood. My parents are amazing. My parents actually immigrated here from Croatia. My mom in the late 60s, my dad in the early 70s. So I am a first generation Croatian American, and alcohol was actually a really big part of my upbringing, because my dad still to this day, he makes homemade wine in the garage. So it was always like a family thing where we'd get together every fall, and, someone would be picking the grapes off of the stems and washing them, and then someone would be crushing them in the crusher. And it was, that was my upbringing. Like it was I was surrounded by a lot of alcohol. But for the most part, like, everything was great. Like my parents, my parents worked hard. They came here in search of the American dream. They worked hard to give my brother and I everything we needed. And I was just kind of like a wild child. I wanted to test the waters. I didn't like anyone telling me what to do. I still don't. It's a character defect of mine, and it's not that I'm always right. Like I take accountability for my stuff now, but I just don't like being told what to do in general. And I was always just very curious about, that lifestyle. And I did hang out with some bad people growing up. And I don't want to say that they led me to it because my mom's always like, oh, it's because you hung out with this one and that one. But I was pretty much like in high school, I was the ringleader. I was the one who was like, oh, I got this. You want to try it? So, and then that's how that stuff came about. But I will say, to backtrack, I did have some traumatic experiences growing up. I had a really good friend on my block and whose brother was killed on my corner. I didn't witness it or anything, but I heard the gunshots and, we went outside and I actually saw the body on the corner. And it was, traumatic for a 9-year-old. And there were other instances like 9 or 10 being sexually assaulted in front of my friend's house, freshman year of high school being sexually assaulted on the bus on my way home. So there were some traumatic things that happened to me. I don't think that was any reason that led me to go down the path that I did. It was more of just, I was a wild child. I was a party girl. I loved to have a good time. I was always making people laugh and stuff like that. But I did suffer from anxiety and depression at a young age, at about 12 years old. So that once the depression kicked in, it manifested as rage. I'd put on heavy metal music in my room, Metallica specifically. I love Metallica. And I just rage out to Metallica and just look at myself in the mirror and just kind of like scream my head off and just start headbanging. And that's how I got my emotions out at that time. Because, I wasn't drinking or using drugs at 12. It was mainly it started a lot when I was 16. So, but for me to get those emotions that I didn't know how to cope with out at 12, that depression and stuff, it manifested as rage. And I became a nasty little bitch at like 12 years old. I was pretty nasty and I was taking it out on my loved ones.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I do have a question. You've been sober for quite some time now. What is that? You said
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, 3 years. So total, we have almost 5 years together total.
Yeah.
So sober.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. But
I know.
want to say, with the healing process that you have gone through, because obviously with sobriety, it takes healing, you deep down have never resurfaced what you went through traumatically to maybe be like, oh, shit, like, okay, maybe this is why I was so angry and depressed and head banging to Metallica. Do you think that ever played a part?
I mean, yes, with the depression and the anxiety. So it really just stemmed from a place of where I felt inadequate. Like I never felt good enough. I had low self-worth. I had low self-esteem. If you know me, you know that I'm always laughing and cracking jokes, but I used humor as a mask my whole life. And everyone was always like, oh my God, we didn't know you were that bad. We didn't know you were going through that, because I never let anyone see, what was really going on deep inside me. I masked it really well, like that pain and suffering that I was feeling inside, like I wasn't good enough, or I always felt like the outsider, like kind of the outcast, because like, growing up while everyone else was listening to like Mariah Carey or doing like girly things, I was more of a tomboy. I wanted to play handball at the handball courts or basketball. And I was listening to heavy metal and classic rock and then the hip hop, so it was just like outlets at that time before I started doing anything was always music. Music has always been my therapy. That, I could just get lost in the song with the lyrics and the medley and the beats, and it would just really put me someplace else like that I wanted to be, because I was just so uncomfortable in my own skin. And like I said, I hated who I saw in the mirror. I hated
I
myself.
love that. Not that I don't love that you hated yourself.
I know.
I
I
love
know.
that you go into, music, because music is a big part of my own upbringing, and I understand that deeply. So I get it. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about your first drink. Do you remember the first time you ever tried alcohol? Was it a cultural thing, or was it out with
Yeah.
friends?
It was a cultural thing. I remember it to this day. I was maybe like 7 or 8 years old, and it wasn't a lot, but like I said, my family immigrated here, and my grandmother her brother Mario, my uncle Mario, my great uncle Mario lived in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn. And we used to go there to visit him, and he used to love to drink Hennessy and Coke. So I remember he poured a little bit, like this much, in a glass for me at like 7 or 8 years old. And, he gave it to me. He was like, here, try this, and I remember trying it, and I loved it. I loved the way it tasted, even though it was just that little sip. I was 7, 8 years old. I was like 60 pounds soaking wet, so it really kind of took me out of myself a little bit. I was like, oh, this is nice. When it felt warm going down. And, I obviously didn't do it again. I didn't do it again until later. I want to say maybe like 13, 14, where I got drunk, and I remember what it was on, and I would never, like, the thought of it makes me want to vomit. It was Alizé, and it was also so I don't know if you guys had this in Boston, but we had this thing called Cisco, and it was red, and we called it, yeah, we called it liquid heroin, right? We called it liquid heroin. So the combination of the Cisco and the Alizé, like, just thinking about it now is like, it was so disgusting. I remember I drank a lot. I drank a lot of the Cisco and the Alizé, and I just remember throwing up. Like, I threw my brains out, and it was so disgusting. I was like, I'm never doing this again. This is disgusting. Like, I felt like crap. I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then, 15, 16, and I'm drinking 40s of Old D and Colt 45 in brown paper bags while I'm going to the bodega on the corner getting Lucy cigarettes to smoke, you know? Yeah, exactly. I know.
Yeah, the universe was like, not.
Exactly. And then it was just a clusterfuck after that.
So yeah, I could trust me, I got it. I continued to drink after my massive vomit spell the first time I got drunk too. No, wait,
Yeah.
because you had a drink, right?
Yeah.
And so you continued, and you were just, a party girl throughout high school. And then once you got out of high school, did you end up going to college? Like, what career path did you end up going down?
So when I went to my freshman year of college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was lost. Like, I was struggling with who I was still, being that I was very much an addict and alcoholic at that time. And I remember going to school, and I never just went to class. My mom she still makes jokes about it, that I'd walk in the school and I'd walk out the back, and that's what I did. I'd rather go in my car. I was like the only one out of my friends to have a car, and I had this like 1995 Buick Skylark. It was like a clown car. This car was a boat, and I'd legit have like 7 or 8 people in my car. It was like the party car, and we'd just go in there. We'd skip class. I'd smoke weed. I'd smoke weed, and then I never went to class, so they kicked me out. So yeah, I am a college dropout. I am.
That's okay. Because here
It
we are
is.
today.
Exactly. And you know what? I hustled my way. I ended up getting a job in the media and entertainment industry, and I worked there for 16 years. I actually just got laid off from my job of 11 years last year. It's been a year. Um, having trouble finding something, but it's in God's hands. I'm leaving it in God's hands. I'm applying to stuff. I feel like he really wants me to find my purpose now. And, I do enjoy helping people. Like, I've been helping people my whole life and always putting other people first in front of myself. And I'm trying to focus more on me now. Obviously my kids are my priority and they come first no matter what. But I am focusing on myself more and figuring out, like, maybe I'll work in recovery. Maybe I'll do something like that. But I do feel like my purpose is to give back and to help people. So I am still figuring that part out on what I'm going to ultimately do, since, this is an opportunity for me to take a totally different career path. So we'll see what happens. In the new year, I feel big things are coming for me.
For sure they are. If you
Yeah.
continue on the first off, manifest, pray it, and it will. And keep working
Yeah,
the work that you do.
exactly.
So you got laid off. I'm sorry that you got laid off, but then tell me what a day in the life of you in full-blown addiction was like, from like the moment you woke up to the time you went to bed. Like, what was it like?
So my earlier years, being that my parents were so strict, I would literally, like, sometimes I'd go to high school, right? I would be in class and I'd pop a hit of E and I'd be in class rolling, because that was my only, like, I would tell my parents, I could hang out with my friends after school for a little bit and then come home. But there were a couple of times where I'd be in high school and I'd wake up in the morning, I'd get my orange juice and I'd take a hit of E and I'd be rolling in class. And, it was wild to think that, like, I was doing that and I didn't get caught, because I was really out there when I was rolling. But when I wasn't in school, like, let's say college years, when, I should have been in college, but it was wake and bake. I'd wake up, I toke up. I really didn't start drinking until later on, maybe like 6, 7 o'clock. But more recently, like 3 years ago, before I got sober, the addiction really had me. It had its grips on me bad. Like, I'd wake up, I'd take a gummy. I would take a gummy. I started drinking at 11 a.m., hair the dog.
In the morning.
In the morning, I take a gummy in the morning to just kind of like ground myself and like settle myself because of my anxiety. And then I'd have a drink because my nerves were like kind of shot. And also, I just drank the night before. So, hair the dog. Yeah, let's start the day off fresh. And then it got really bad. The month of November in 2022, my grandmother had just died on November 1st. And it really progressed. Excuse me. It really progressed that month, where I just started going full throttle with the drinking, with the cocaine use. It was just like I would do cocaine several times a week. And a lot of the time I would do it because I needed to get stuff done in the house. And I was just too lazy from the drinking and the gummy that I took, that I needed some pep in my step. And I, put my kids to sleep. And, I had a court battle with this and everything. But, I know I shouldn't have been doing this in the house, the drinking, whatever. People drink after they put their kids to bed or whatever. But, I was doing cocaine after I put them to bed. And I would clean or do the dishes or just like listen to music. And then I'd get to a point where I'd be completely paranoid. Like, I thought the cops were going to come to my house, and I'd be looking out the window like, oh my God, who is that? What car is that? Like, super paranoid. And it got to a point where I reached the point of no return. And, I started leaving bottles around my house. I've never done that in my life. I've never hid bottles in my life. Now, my ex-husband was trying to straighten up my act. He was like, you need help. You need help. You've reached the point of no return. I don't want to listen to him because, like I said, I didn't listen to nobody. And it just got to a point where I really hit my rock bottom. I hit my rock bottom and I just hated myself and I didn't want to go on living anymore. I was miserable. I was miserable in my relationship with my ex-husband. I felt like we were two strangers, just like roommates living together. He was always in the basement. I was always upstairs. And it was like that for about a year towards the end of our relationship. And he resented me. I resented him. And he tried to get me to open up my eyes. And when I finally did, it was kind of too late. I had gotten really bad. And then I was like, you know what? Rehab. He got a number for me. I called the number and I literally detoxed at home for 3 days, I remember. And I went to rehab on November 28th, 2022. Rehab, RCA in South Amboy, New Jersey, Raritan Bay, that rehab saved my life. It really did. I wouldn't have been able to gotten sober without that rehab. Seriously, I couldn't have done it by myself.
And yeah, I could understand that. And what was detoxing like for you at home? Because I did it without medical attention myself.
Same. I was going through waves of emotions that I wasn't used to. Like I was either really anxious. It was kind of like manic. Like I went into like a manic episode where I would be like delirious and like laughing hysterically, and then I just start crying, and crying, like just feeling all the shame and the guilt and just like replaying everything that I've ever done in my life, like to my parents, that no matter what I did to my parents, they always stood by me, to my family, that they were always there. They could have very easily like kicked me out on the street, but they never gave up on me. They never gave up on me. And I was just, plus I was staying with my parents that weekend when I detoxed. My ex-husband wanted me to like take a little chill pill, and, I stayed there until that Sunday before that Monday when I went into rehab. And it was a lot. I didn't have the shakes or anything like that, but I was very nervous. I remember being very nervous, being very depressed, very manic. Just my emotions were like a roller coaster. They were like going all over the place. I could not control. It was a lot.
And did you have any physical, other than mental, like things when it came to withdrawals, any physical symptoms?
Honestly, I didn't. I didn't have, it was weird because like I was doing it so much, and I actually got to a point where like I would joke around with people that like I'm drinking so much that I'm not even getting drunk anymore. It's like I'm immune to alcohol, and I could literally, like I would say this all the time, and I'm saying it now, but at that point in time, I was saying it as a flex, and now I'm looking back and I'm like, that is not a flex to be bragging about. Like I could drink you under the table. Like I could literally, you're a grown ass man who's like 250 pounds, but I could drink your ass under the table on a Tuesday. How about that? And that was just my mentality, like very like braggadocious, like proud. I was proud. Braggadocious. Like I was very proud of like my drinking ability, that I could like drink like a man. And you know what? But the thing was, like, I was a functioning alcoholic because I'd get up and I'd go to work the next day. Went to work. I didn't like at towards the end, and I was working from home. I did get a little lazy, but I was working from home. So there was no reason for me to be lazy. I just have to go on my computer at 9 a.m., and just, sign in because I was working remotely. But I remember like working before pre-COVID, working in the media entertainment industry, like we'd go to happy hours all the time. And I'd literally be out until like midnight, and getting home, from the city to Staten Island, because that's where I was living, at like 1 a.m. And then I'd make it at work at like 8:30 in the morning. So, I was reliable, even though I was a drunk, and a pothead and a cokehead. I was reliable. I showed up the next day. So that's why I never thought I was that bad, because I was functioning. Got up the next day. I did what I had to do. Yeah. That's why it was just like this vicious cycle of like, I'm not that bad. I got a job. I have a house. I have a car. I'm paying my bills on time. I got this. It's good. I'm having fun. No big deal. The eye opener. Yeah. You know what? I always say that it's like my grandmother's death was my rebirth. I'm a big spiritual person. I'm into spirituality. And the summer of 2022, I kept seeing angel numbers everywhere on receipts, on the clock, on license plates. And I was like, what is the universe trying to tell me? And I didn't think anything of it until my grandmother died on November 1st, which is 11/1, okay, 111, 2022, 222. Wait, it gets better. 5:55 p.m. She took her last breath at 5:55 p.m. And 5:55 is the angel number for change. So when she died, my ex-husband and I, we had a trip planned to ready take the kids to Disney in Florida. So her funeral was a Saturday, and we left that Sunday, and I didn't want to go. I was like, I don't want to go. My grandmother just died. Can I please stay home? My mom's like, she would have wanted you to go and have a good time. So while I'm there, My ex-husband and I had an agreement. I was like, please just let me drink on this trip. Like, I told him I was going to slow down with my drinking. He didn't want me to drink at all. I said, please let me just try and have a good time on this trip, being that I'm grieving. And, it didn't really, like, I knew that, like, she died in front of me, but I still wasn't, it wasn't fully processed yet, And it was a horrible trip for me. I wasn't being present for my kids. In my little sippy cup was vodka and Sprite. I was drinking everywhere I went. I was belligerent. I was getting, I don't get nasty when I drink. I'm very like, oh, I love you. I'll make friends with, like, I'll be in the bathroom with some chick and, I'll become best friends with her. And then we'll make plans for next weekend. And then I have all these random numbers in my phone. And I'm like, who the hell did I meet the night before? But literally that trip, it was an eye opener for me. And I just got worse when I got home. Like, I got worse when I got home, and I was like, enough is enough. I finally woke up one day and I was sick and tired of my own shit. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, And it's really like mindset is like everything, because once you can change your mindset about something, and this goes for anything in life, once you can change your way about how you think about something, there's like a huge switch, like a shift happens. And once I told myself that I don't need this to have fun or to come out of myself. And I literally went into rehab you know, like I owned the place. I was like, they were calling me Little Miss Sunshine. I was like dancing, and like I was literally having a spiritual awakening when I went into rehab, because, like, dude, I was numbing myself for 26 years. And then I'm actually feeling these emotions, like the pain and the sadness and the grief and the euphoria. And I was just like on a pink cloud where I was just high on life. And it was like no drug I've ever been on. I was just high on life, that I was actually like living. I was living without those substances, and it made me feel free. It made me feel freer than I ever did while I was, on shit. It just made me come out of myself, but in a way I've never come out of myself before. It was just raw and vulnerable and amazing.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And what did you end up doing? How long were you in rehab for? And what did you end up doing after when you got out?
So I was in rehab for 30 days, and it was from November 28th to December 28th. And during that time, like, I went to meetings, like, I really applied myself. I love karaoke and I love entertaining people. Like, it's just like, I just like to be a clown, basically. So we were only supposed to have karaoke every Friday night. We did it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I was like, nope, karaoke is going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're gonna show these people that sobriety is popping. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna sing. We're gonna dance. We're gonna do it all. So I did that. Like, I had so much fun, honestly, like in rehab. And then, like, thought like getting sober like was gonna just fix my life magically, but it didn't, because the day before I got out of rehab, on November 27th. No, sorry, December 27th. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was my nephew's birthday, and I was served with a temporary restraining order. And I couldn't go back home to be with my children. And I did not know what the road ahead of me was going to entail, but I knew it was going to be ugly. And I remember them serving me, my therapist in rehab, with like the director of therapy, and I broke down. And I went in my room, and I just remember I isolated myself for about 3 hours. I let myself feel those emotions of like, what the fuck am I going to do? Like, I may lose my kids over this shit. And I'm getting emotional now, because I don't know what happened, but like, it lit a fire. Like, I remember praying to God, and I believe in God, but I also believe in many other things, but I've never prayed to God like I did that day. Like, I was always used to praying to God and asking for stuff. Like, God, can you give me this and that new job and whatever? It never came from a place of gratitude. And I just said, thank you, God. Thank you for allowing me to be here for the last 30 days. Thank you for changing my life. I know that whatever happened, happened for a reason. Nothing in life is a coincidence. And whatever I'm meant to learn from this or for you to teach me, please use me as your vessel. And I don't know what happened, but my spiritual awakening intensified at that point. On that date, December 27, 2022, lit a fire under my ass that was impossible to extinguish, because as soon as I came out of rehab, I went to a meeting. Okay, they say 90 meetings in 90 days. I did 90 meetings in 60 days. I took a leave of absence, a five-month leave of absence from my job to focus on my sobriety and my mental health. I went to intensive outpatient 3 times a week at my rehab, where I learned all types of coping skills and therapies like DBT therapy. I swear by dialectical behavioral therapy. It really teaches you how to shift your mindset, like to come from a place of, being more mindful and present, and practicing radical acceptance. Just if like shit happens to you and life gets lifey, you got to accept that shit. Like, don't throw yourself a pity party. Stop crying, woe is me. Stop with the victim mentality. Because if you're going to keep living in that mindset of victim mentality, you're going to keep attracting those experiences. You're going to keep attracting that shit. So I just started radically accepting everything and like, okay, I'm letting it go. I sat with it until I was ready to release those feelings, until they no longer served me. And then I was like, take care, comb your hair. I'm done. You know? It's like, I'm done.
Oh, I literally feel like we're the same person.
Really?
And your story is pretty similar.
Um,
Yeah, mentality wise, like don't throw yourself a pity party. And look, for the people who are listening, I'm gonna say this: in early sobriety, for me, I could say, and in active addiction who are listening to this, the pity party is normal. You're gonna do it.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's really not going to get you anywhere. Just like you said, Natalie, it's not going to get you anywhere. It's time to I say it, just buck up. Like, just buck up. Let's just own up, take accountability, and just tunnel vision. Let's get it done. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever,
Whatever it takes.
literally, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So then you ended up, okay, wow, you went in your first year of sobriety to make sure that you were serious, and you ended up getting served though. And what
Yep.
happens after that? Did you get your children taken away, or that ended up getting fixed? That got fixed?
Did not get fixed. So basically what happened was, for 6 months, I fought for my kids. I stayed sober. I did my programs. I went to therapy once a week. I was doing therapy once a week. I was being drug tested randomly. All of my drug tests were always negative. So for 6 months, I only saw my girls, my 2 baby girls, every Sunday, supervised by my parents from 10 to 8. So I actually, no, 10 to 6, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every Sunday. I only saw them then, and it broke me. Like, literally, I was breaking inside, but I just kept myself so busy that I did not have time to feel sorry for myself or, let my mind sway myself, because, old Natalie would have used that as an excuse to drink or drug. Anytime there was a stressful thing happening in my life, that was my biggest reason to use. It was my biggest reason. I could not deal with stress properly. I didn't have healthy outlets or routines. And I just was like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm going to have a bottle, and not even a glass of wine. I'm having a bottle of wine later. Or, I'm having a bottle or maybe 2, we'll see what happens. And that was just my mentality. But then when this happened and I came out of rehab, I was like, if I can't do it for me, I have to do it for those 2 little girls right there. Because they're looking up to mommy right now, and they're like, where's mommy? Why are we only seeing mommy on Sundays? And they were still too little to understand. They were only 4 and 2 at that time. And they didn't understand what was going on. And I wanted to be that role model for them, that, look, you can go through hard times in life, but it's not about how hard you fall. It's about getting back up after the fall. It's about how high you rise afterwards. And that's what I've been doing this whole time, because let me tell you, the last 3 years have been complete fucking shit. Like, it's not even, and the funny thing is that I have never had a burning desire through everything that's happened over the last 3 years, over the instance with my custody battle, my divorce, being kicked out of my home, having to move back to Brooklyn with my parents, and then, driving back and forth from Brooklyn to Staten Island to New Jersey. I was like, I literally leave in the morning at 9 a.m. I wouldn't come home until midnight because I was literally going to my first year of sobriety, I was going to 3 meetings a day. I had a commitment making coffee every Saturday is at a meeting. And I just wanted to be a part of something because I was just isolating so much. So I really stuck to those meetings. And look, I know meetings aren't for everyone. You do what you need to do to get sober. Like, there's no wrong or right way to do this. You do whatever works for you. It could be MAT recovery. It could be NA. It could be CA. It could be AA. It could be no meetings at all. It could just be, like this online community has helped me more than anything. Just making that page, that sober page in the beginning, because I was still kind of living from a place of fear. And I just happened to merge my my private account with my sobriety account because you know what? I've never been afraid or I never cared about what anyone had to say about me. Like, people are always going to talk about you. Like, that's always been my motto. Might as well give them something to talk about. But it's like, I don't care. Like, everybody has some shit in their life that either they're not proud of or some family drama or whatever. Nobody cares. Who gives a shit? Just live your life for you. Be true to yourself. And that's why I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not ashamed of who I am, and I'm going to stand in my truth and live in my truth now because this is who I am. And I'm proud of who I am now. I'm proud of the person I've become. It's been a long ride, a long journey to get here. And, like I said, the last 3 years have been a clusterfuck, like a freaking roller coaster of shit being thrown at me at every angle with, like, just recently, my dog, that I bought from my girls. She's been missing since October 21st. And, that broke
That's
that.
the day that my cat, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
That is literally the day my cat got murdered.
you fucking serious?
I lost my animal the same day that you lost yours. The one that I
Okay. Yeah. It was October 20.
Okay, no, sorry, not October, September 21st. And then if Jasmine, my 14-year-old cat, passed away. So I heard the 21st and it was very close. Okay, so you lost
Okay.
your though in a tragic way
Yeah.
as well, though. Very similar timing. Wow.
Yeah. Very traumatic. Very traumatic. I literally almost ended up in the hospital with a nervous breakdown. Like, I was going crazy. And I bought this dog for my kids. Like, I bought Coco for my kids. I promised them when mommy got back on her feet that I was going to buy them a puppy. And I stayed true to my promise. We moved into our new house in February, March of this year of 2025. We moved here and I got them the dog. And yeah, I don't know what happened to her. My friend was watching her for me that I met in the rooms of AA. And I don't know if she said that she ran out of the house. She could have ran out. Maybe they sold her for money. Maybe they're keeping her. I don't know. I don't know. She's maintaining her innocence. And it just got to a point where I had to give it to God. And because it was literally making me sick. And it's not just mentally, but physically, like my body was breaking down. It was. And I was like, God, please help me. Again, another time in my life where I turned to God because I needed his help. And I went through another spiritual awakening. I've had several throughout my whole life. But I got to say, this one that just happened recently, like 2 months ago, was the most intense awakening I've ever been through in my life. Just by how I was feeling afterwards. Like I told my mom, because my mom thought I relapsed. And she's like, "What?" I was dancing and singing around the house. She was like, "Are you okay? You're like off your rocker over here." And I'm like, "Ma, I don't know. I just gave it to God and I just feel free now. I'm surrendering my will over to his plan again. Anytime I want to try and control something, it doesn't go as planned. It turns to shit. So I'm letting him control it from now on. I let go and It was intense for like 3 weeks. And then, I'm still getting the downloads, and still having my little, because I like to do tarot readings and stuff like that. And my full moon witchy rituals, my woo woo practices, whatever. But yeah, it was intense. It hasn't been easy the last 3 years. A lot of grief, a lot of grief over my lifetime, but specifically the last 3 to 4 years, a lot of grief.
I can't relate more, and
I know.
I really can't relate more. How do you deal with grief and sobriety? How do you, because I go into tunnel vision until I have a breakdown, similar to basically what you said happened to you. It got physical for me. What do you do?
Well, this time, I'm not even, I'm going to talk about prior to Coco because the Coco situation really set me over the edge and it was extremely traumatic and a very painful experience. But, like without that pain, you can't truly grow, like no rain, no flowers. You need that shit. You need that pain. And I know some people might be listening and they may not really truly understand that, but that's how you grow. Like you grow through what you go through. And like prior to that in sobriety, I'm not going to lie. I lost my cousin 2 years ago and we were best friends. Like she's my soul sister. We were together for 40 years and she had cancer and it came back. She was cancer free for like 10 years and then it metastasized. And then like out of the blue, it went to her brain and she was gone. I'm still, I'm trying to practice radical acceptance with that situation, but I still haven't come to terms that she's gone. I have been talking to her a lot more lately, but I remember, 2 years ago when she passed, I isolated myself. That's how I deal with my grief and my depression. I isolate and I don't want to be around nobody. I want to be in my room. I want to be alone. Something on in the background, like just something on, like TV, music, just to get me out of myself. Like I'm not even paying attention to the TV, but if it's the music, like, and especially since I was going through like a very depressing time in my life, I would listen to like Alice in Chains, Down in a Hole, or, Incubus, Wish You Were Here, just songs that relate to the experience that I'm going through. So I can just go through the motions. That's how I deal with it. And I'll cry. Like I'll cry, I'll purge it out of me. I'll cry and then I'll, look at pictures and then I'll laugh and whatever I need to do, journal. I would journal. I wrote some poems. I love writing poetry. I love writing in general. Journaling is really great to get all of your emotions out. And I'm not on your phone because everyone's glued to their phones these days. It's just like the sign of the times. But like if putting pen to paper and just really expressing yourself and getting that all out of you, it's really a beautiful thing.
I love that about you. I really, really do. I'm a very deep person,
Thank you.
so, and I could tell that you're spiritual and spiritual as well. So I really I love that, and I'm guessing you like Tupac, Biggie, all of that, just like me.
Yeah. Tupac, Biggie, Nas. Oh my gosh. Like Tupac shed so many tears. Like, oh my God, that got me through a lot of hard times. Tupac shed so many tears. It's very nice. I love
Yes, very nice. Biggie for me though, Biggie, okay, so to me, Tupac is more lyrical and Biggie has them beats, but they both are
it.
just so awesome. I actually have a Biggie figurine behind me. I don't think you could see it, and I wouldn't be able to
I
post it
can't.
right now, but I will.
Oh, it's
Oh,
fine.
yeah. Yes, somebody got
Yeah.
me
Really?
close friend of mine. Yes. Look, they're lyrical. They got me through sobriety. A lot of other artists got me through sobriety and
Yeah.
addiction. I'm sure you could relate
Same.
to that. But if you could go back and speak to the old you and give the old you some advice, including somebody listening right now that could hear it, what would you say?
You are enough. You are enough. You are beautiful. You are loving. You are kind. You have the biggest heart. You make people laugh. Don't let anything that anyone tells you deter you from that, make you change your mind that you're any less or that you're less than or you're not good enough or you're not worthy enough. Don't let the shit that people talk, the bullies that maybe you're in school and people are bullying you, or people are just being plain out mean to you. Don't let them, because obviously you have something in you that they hate in themselves that you have. And you just got to keep on shining that light and doing you, staying true to yourself and loving everything about yourself. Even the quirks that you think maybe are a little weird and a little out there, the weirder the better, baby. The weirder the better, okay? Because who wants to be normal? Normal is boring, okay? Do you, be you, love yourself.
Damn, I love that. I love that.
I love it too.
But thank you for sharing your story, and I'm going to end it here. But for everybody listening, this again is Natalie, and if your Instagram, we said it in the beginning, but it was the sober
Go get her.
and
Yep.
then the personality with the 3 E's.
Yeah.
Personality.
Yeah. Personality. Like personality, but personality. I know, it's like a tough
The
one.
D. And then you got
Tag me in it.
do well.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.